Hello, everybody. We give it that few minutes to let people log on. Lots to discuss here in this video. I got nice set of notes so I can go through everything and not miss a thing. I'm pretty tired from yesterday and the day before too. Actually, it's been a wipeout here for the last 3 days, but it's okay. Feeling okay. And people are logging on, so I'm gonna get started. Okay, hello everybody. Um, So this is my intro update. So I have not heard back. It's the end of the day. I have not heard from one member of the Security Council or even the President of Africa since getting a hold of that office here at noon today. Or sorry, not noon today. Since this morning, 10 a.m. That's when they open. So they all would have got it at noon their time, which is somewhat reflective on Twitter. Only four of the nations post on Twitter in relation to independence. And if you guessed UK was the one who did not, you'd be absolutely right. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to give the public history of where I've been and several of my followers, loyal followers, in fact, who've been with me on this little one and a half week journey, I would say. So the first is Russia. Just for everybody watching, Russia has a population of 145 million people. They're not as large as the United States, but nonetheless, they're a fairly large country with a mighty powerful military. Okay, of that 145 million, only 7.5 million people speak English. And why this is important: as of July 3rd this year, 2020, an executive order by Putin was made and ratified by July 4th, which is absolutely, for Americans, that's Independence Day. And they ratified that Russia will be the official language in all of their realm. And they ratified that by executive order and, in fact, amended the Constitution that day by order of Putin as an executive order. So when you look at Russia posts, things like that, it's all in Russian. And I've been bothering them quite a bit over years, in fact. And independence is the topic right now, decolonization. It has been for the last week. I've been on top of this for quite a while. I did work on this exactly a year ago today, and I did this same job while presenting the Alberta Independence Party, just a different format, okay? So Russia never posts outside of their language, let alone they're going to do an English presentation, and they did just such as that. I asked, and of course they gave an open public invite, another thing they never do, let alone they hosted it in all English with all regions and territories that absolutely do not have English in any core major minority of English speaking, okay? All their countries, 100 minority languages, English is way down there, okay? So they do this YouTube. A couple of my followers come with me on this. We all watch, and I type away. I make some presentations. We become clear with our correlation between, if Alberta was to be any kind of recognition, it would be a Palestine deal. For those of you who don't understand, it's about recognizing Palestine as a country, which wasn't done in 1948, okay? It was the opposite. So that's where Alberta is, because Canada is the UN state, and Alberta is a territory inside that UN state. So everybody right now, the big fight is about Palestine. So any country that's going to fight for Palestine will likely, even though you don't have to believe in Palestine, the fact is Alberta's in the exact same situation as Palestine from international law 1948. We never took on our system of constitutional monarchy The colonial powers of our Constitution have not been changed. We have never addressed that as a nation, or any province has ever gone forward with that. So we are literally a Palestine, okay? So this presentation, the letter I all showed you, went off this morning. It went to the African president. Why I get into this little Russia history here is because at exactly noon, the break, when they would have got the presentation, four of these nations all post. Russia posted in Russian, but they show the screenshot of the YouTube video that I was on, and I was chatting away, typing away with one of my followers. So that was posted, and in Russian they talk about Palestine, which means they're talking about Alberta. Second one is United States of America. It was 1 year ago. I went to the sitting UNSC president, which at that time was absolutely President-elect Donald J. Trump, because we had Nikki Haley had resigned her position. And at that time, yes, Kelly Knight Craft had stepped forward in nomination, but she had to be passed through Congress. And she hadn't formally had that done yet. It was the United States' turn to host the UNSC presidency that month, and it was December as well, and that was Donald J. Trump. So I asked all of you, my loyal followers and party followers at the time, I created a coded email. I wrote up everything about what we were doing politically, why we needed their support, and we would need a referendum. That was sent in. I had many Albertans at the time with the party I had coming forward. I had them all submit emails for the same copied email so that their email would register with President Trump and the UNSC. So at the exact same time as Russia, at the lunch break, we had Russia post that post showing the screenshot. Then we had Nikki Haley on her feed. She posted right back on Palestine, and she tags none other than POTUS from 1 year ago today. Then we see China. They tagged the same post. They put up the Palestine, the same image that me and several followers were in just a week ago today. France did not do that. France did, however, post a picture of a Palestinian child saying all peoples should have sovereignty. There shouldn't be refugees anywhere in the world, and that all peoples should have their sovereignty. And they post a Palestinian child, and they even say it in French. Just so you know, everybody did their host languages, so I had to spend some time here making sure I had that all translated after I transferred over into a Word document and change it. It's hard to explain, but I did that to make sure exactly what I'm saying is exactly what happened. And UK doesn't say an absolute word. There's not one post, so it's very clear at this point. UK is not cool with my presentation, not generally, probably. Like, I don't know for sure. Nobody's responded to me yet, but they're dead silent on their feed, okay? Nothing at all. And that should all bother you. So then, post this, I also left my notifications on, which are off right now because I'd never get through this. But I went into an academic live. Brazilian expert presented a great presentation today, and I never miss academic forums. It was the country of Brazil, and they go into really open. They go into the core root problems. This is all going to make sense. Trust me, everybody. Just hang in there. So they go through the core problems. They call it juristocracy. You know how I talk about autocracy of Canada, our political parties? In Brazil, the major problem is not autocracy, even though that's happening. It's called juristocracy. In Brazil, the power is of the courts. They're higher than their elected politicians. The mob rule, the courts literally, when they make a judgment, they don't follow Constitution, apparently. A lot of their judgments now follow the mob rule of the people, and they will ignore the Constitution. I guess Brazilian politicians, president, everything else, all their elected officials are terrified, apparently, of their superior court system, Supreme Court, and the judges will rule literally on emotion and the will of the people, ignoring all kinds of constitutional power, whether that's good or bad. And I guess apparently it's pretty bad, right? It would be literally, it's kind of the same thing as Canada. However, this does not apply to us in Canada, I can tell you that, but it does apply to the autocracy, and I'm going to get to why this is important. So, at the same time as all this, in Edmonton, Alberta, there is a lot of you sharing with me a UK postal judge that wears an American flag. He has a history of posting radical ideas, all kinds of what I call the fake narratives. Mythos Canada is on this, okay? They're named in it. QAnon, all the anti-vax organization, and all the propaganda going with it. This is in our courts, was just in our courts today. Specifically right here in Edmonton is Jacqueline Phoenix, okay? And she uses the Mythos Canada, QAnon, this UK postal judge, all of it. You guys got to hear this. So they ruled that they are going to start cracking down. Edmonton judge, anyone posting on this stuff, and they just made an example of her today, and they are absolutely going to pursue her criminally, okay? So careful what you guys are doing here forward, especially from what I've done. You know, and I'm glad it's out there. It's just must stay credible. I can't entertain UK postal judge. I can't entertain Mythos Canada. I can't entertain QAnon or anti-vax. It's not about forced vaccinations and all that. When I say anti-vax, it's the propaganda and the absolute lies on top of stuff with vaccines and everything else that is absolutely not true. If I continue with independence and at the rate I'm going, there's a good chance that powers with Canada can lump me into that group, lump independence into that group, separation, sovereignty, and this is what will be exploited with us going forward, okay? And I'm not a fearful guy. I don't feel anything, and I understand people's rights, but I don't want to be associated with that. So if that's for you, continue on this day forward, but keep it on your feeds. Don't bring it to mine or try to rope me into it or share that stuff with me. I don't want it. But now, some positives here. From everything I've experienced today, this forum I was in, from a real high accredited expert, this is my question inside the Canadian system. Just basically saying that I don't support no UK postal judge. I do not support Mythos Canada. I do not support QAnon or the anti-vax organization. None of that is my narrative. I have nothing to do with any of those organizations or groups. Okay, I'm all about sovereignty for the people of Alberta, Alberta independence. And I totally, the Magna Carta, I of all people have always said international law from 1948 absolutely trumps Magna Carta. I know this. I know there's less than 3 provisions of Magna Carta left, and that's the Church of England. I understand London very well. I've been all through this in the last 4 years. But now I'm going to get to this very, very important question to all my followers, Canadians, Albertans, even other provinces and jurisdictions. This is my question today. To all judges and lawyers in Canada or any province, and that's lawyers if you know the answer. Does Attorney General, Governor General, or Lieutenant Governor override a judge's decision in regards to the Constitution of Canada or any ascended bill or acts? Do they override you? Specifically a judge, are they able to override you here in Canada? That's all I want to know. I've never had any problems with a lawyer. In fact, I have a lot of great friends who are actually lawyers. For a guy who's not in that field, I think, you know what, I actually have a lot of lawyer friends, probably even really high accredited lawyer friends than probably most people that are in law are practicing law, and that's my major question publicly today for Canadian judges at any level of justice, whether that's municipal, the judicial level, or municipality wise, or if we're going to go up to Superior Court for the provinces, or if we're going to go to all the way up to Supreme Court federally. Any courts, whether it's criminal, civil, it doesn't matter. This is the question. Does Attorney General, Governor General, Lieutenant Governor override you in regards to the Constitution of Canada or any acts or bills ascended? Can they step in and override you, and do they do that? That's what I want to know. Tomorrow, so this is the update. Now I'm going to complete my little thing here on the UNSC. So no one's got back to me, but it's not over, because anyone who's read that letter, it's actually dated tomorrow, as the UNSC goes for a half day only in the morning, and it is absolutely on proliferation. For those of you who don't understand what that means, that's nuclear proliferation. And in fact, we have a treaty non-proliferation, and they're to be discussing Iran, which for Canadians and Albertans here, Edmonton was highly affected, including one of our academics, by the downing of that plane. We lost a lot of Edmontonians in that plane crash that Iran shot down. Whether it's ruled an accident or we're never going to know, right? Another JFK. But that specifically, and everything that's going on with Iran and sanctions and everything else, the history is Iran is going nuclear against non-proliferation. They're going into proliferation. They've historically done this before. They do not have any steady, reliable source of enriched uranium, and this is a big deal, and we're going to get to why my letter was so important to be presented tomorrow morning. If it's going to be, everybody, I don't know. We're going to see. I hope it is. But for Iran, their nuclear capabilities and this big fear, and the world sending billions and billions of dollars in these huge payouts to Iran over proliferation, when we have a treaty of non-proliferation, they're under sanctions. And when you compare Iran to Alberta, okay, their oil prices under tremendous sanctions right now are significantly higher than Alberta's. Alberta's are absolutely, and Canadian oil, they call it Canadian oil, but it's really Alberta oil for a vast amount of the content of what goes through those lines, through its transitioning territories. We're not slamming Saskatchewan here or southern Manitoba or anybody else. The fact is, most oil in Canada is absolutely Alberta oil, okay? Whether you call it Western Canadian Select or you want to call it Canadian oil, Canadian crude, it is mostly, almost all, entirely Alberta, okay? We have the lowest oil prices, whatever you want to call it, whichever division you call it, in the absolute world, okay? We are not a proliferation country. Canada enforces non-proliferation. Ontario gets nuclear plants, can do unenriched uranium reactors, which they must reload fuel cells all the time, because we can't have real nuclear reactors in Canada, because that would require enriched uranium. Now, here is the absolute truth that any of you can find out for yourself. Any nuclear experts here in Canada, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Northwest Territories, in one circular round radius that encompasses the Athabasca Basin and much more north, and of course into northern Alberta, upwards of Fort McMurray and above, and some of the 771, has the highest quality enriched naturally occurring uranium in the entire world. Not by a little, but by a tremendous amount. In fact, the average source uranium found there is 20% enriched. It is very possible for Alberta to easily outproduce both Russia and United States combined, in fact the whole world, on nuclear weapons. We could easily outdo all of the superpowers in the world today if we did not follow the Treaty of Non-Proliferation as Iran does, okay? Now, I'm not saying we're doing that. This isn't a threat I put into the letter. It's just a statement of facts. Alberta and most of Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan actually is the most developed, and of course, USA has been the major beneficiary. Even though Saskatchewan only gets pennies on the dollar, it's basically a waste product because we're not allowed proliferation. If we were allowed proliferation, we would probably have high-powered nuclear reactors all across Canada, and we'd be in energy independence would be reached just with Alberta, but Saskatchewan could easily do it 10 times over. And the reality is we could have a nuclear arsenal that the likes of which the world's never seen. Now, I'm not saying we're doing that. I'm just saying, why is Iran getting paid and sanctions don't seem to matter? And it appears that Alberta, Canada, is under the most tremendous trade embargoes and sanctions out of any nation for natural resources in the entire world. Okay? Iran being the worst nation in the world today, the greatest human rights violator currently, and their proliferation. And it's post the treaty. And they've been paid not to be in the world. Makes a big deal about this, but tomorrow, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even the small, limited Northwest Territory that was Alberta, Saskatchewan, a lot of northern Quebec at one time in our history. Why is that region sitting back taking this, or provinces now as it's been chopped? Why are we following all these rules when we're in the worst situation imaginable as a really terrific people who've never committed any real atrocities out on the world stage? And First Nations watching this, yes, you're the living atrocity right here at home. But I argue that colonialism and our federal system here in Canada does not just do it to you and has historically done it to you from UK, France, all the way through to what Canada is now. But that's administered upon us too, and not as bad, not nearly as bad. But those for independence wish to ratify and correct that in a real human rights addressment that gives you self-government, self-sufficiency with your first choice of lands and a fair percentage of the GDP. Because there is no trillion-dollar account waiting for you. The UK has long thrown that in the garbage. Canada as well, in the name of the crown. That's all just pillow talk for applying colonial powers that haven't existed since 1948. Right now, that UN Security Council is looking at this. They're looking at my presentation. If anyone hasn't read that or shared that out to First Nations, I should try and get that out to the chiefs. I really should. And I guess that may be something I'll be doing in the new year, or I will do in the new year. But it's all what the treaties are going to allow me to do. There's been some negativity in that. But this is where we're at. So now everybody's up to date. We're going to see tomorrow. We're going to see how they respond, if we're able to view the contents of their sitting or not. Or are they going to post it on Twitter as 4 of them did today? I don't know. We're going to wait and see. But thanks, everybody. This is my really detailed update for you and where I'm going forward. And don't forget the question to the judges. That's what I want to know. And I guess, in final, that's going to be my New Year's resolution. I have not broke out in my own Canadian academic world. 1 or 2, very limited, which is very pathetic when USA is a wide open door, or many other nations, even UK and many other nations have been absolutely an open door to me, but yet my own country is an absolute closed door. And maybe that says something about Canadian academia, and maybe just like Brazil's version of just autocracy, is there an academic version of an autocracy? I don't know. If you can find countries that have it in the courts, this one has it in the politics, and there's many more with different variations. is there an academic autocracy? I guess that's going to be something I'm going to have to look at, because that sure feels like something here in Canada, along with absolute colonialism. And it's going to be that justice system that's going to have to answer this question, which means, will a judge give me the time of the day? Will I hear if I contact a Supreme Court justice, or are they just going to blow me off? This judge that ruled today, by the way, against Jacqueline Phoenix, the radical who's been at her for 6 months, I've reached out to that justice and they've never once ever returned anything, and that's in my own city. Now, maybe when COVID's over, I'm going to walk in that door and I'm going to try, I guess, but I do find that our justice system is absolutely closed off in any kind of education of the public. Now, I know there's an online where justices for the Supreme Court do their activities, and I've seen all those even on TV on satellite, but I've never actually logged into one. I don't know if there's any kind of communication back or forth, or is it much the same as our political parties, where you get into it but it's all dictatorial, and our organizations, they're dictating to you, but don't you even try to think or come up with another opinion or voice an idea. You know what I mean? Type in a little box, you get one. I mean, this is a problem we have with Canada. And does that absolutely come from this crown authority that we think we've bestowed upon our elected officials and certain sections of our governing system, where they're above everybody and that we're not the same kind of human beings? Is it really that first class, second class, third class citizen? It sure appears to be. I would say. And when you ever sit down with politicians, especially on the federal level, federal parties, you really see it all the way through the conservatives. Like, I'm not saying every MP, but there's a lot of that. And you go, wow, man, like, wow. It's scary, scary stuff. So thanks, everybody. This is my update. I hope it gets shared out there. It's meant to be educational. And one more day here. Tomorrow morning's huge. I'm going to be following it. I look for another update tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed early tonight. I'm going to go back, see my girls, spend the evening with them. And it's lights out for me. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.